Hi, Kirk here with Aero Precision. Today we're going to be going over how to clean and lubricate the bolt carrier group of your AR15. The bolt carrier group is the part of the AR15 that requires some of the most attention when it comes to cleaning and lubricating. So today we're going to break it down and show you how to clean, lube it, and put it back together. So the first thing you're going to want to do is take your bolt carrier group apart. So you're going to start with this little cotter pin here that retains your firing pin in the system. So we're going to grab that and pull it right on out. This one's giving me a little bit of trouble, but there is a little hole here you can hit with a pointed object, and that'll drive that pin out. So if you're having a hard time grabbing onto it like I just was, go ahead and use that little pinhole there and use a punch or some sort of pointed object. I use the nozzle of that lube bottle there, push it right on out. So now that our firing pin's free, we can give it a little tap on the back of the carrier. That'll fall right on out. Next, we're going to move to our cam pin here. You're going to want to make sure this is in the rearward position, so push your bolt in if it is not, and then you're going to rotate it 90 degrees so it is running the length of the carrier, and that should fall right on out. Lastly, you just take your bolt here and pull it out of the front of the carrier. So now we move on to cleaning. What order you do this in isn't really important. It just matters that you do clean all the parts you need to. I like to start with the firing pin because it's quick and easy. It's chrome lined on this particular example, so we're gonna go ahead and give that a good wipe down. So you see a lot of that carbon just comes right off. If you do get some hard carbon on there, you can use a little bit of solvent and a brush. Don't get anything too abrasive and it'll come right off, but you can see that wiped off super easy. Next, I move over to the cam pin. I'm gonna wipe the cam pin body down. Then get the top there. Top's not super important. I just like to do it so my bolt carrier group looks nice and clean when I'm done. Cool, so that wiped off pretty easy. You can see there, got a nice clean cam pin. Then move over to the bolt. On the bolt, what you're really gonna need to focus on is from the gas rings forward. So back here, you'll get some hard carbon buildup. It's not super critical that you get that perfectly clean, but you can give it a wipe down if you want. If there's hard carbon on there like you see here and that really bothers you, again, a brass brush or some sort of carbon scraper that's designed for this can pull that right off. But for the most part, you're just wiping it off if you don't have any super extreme carbon buildup. So give that a good wipe down. You're gonna want to check your bolt face, make sure that's nice and clean. And then something I like to do is get in between the lugs here, and how I do that is with a Q-tip. So take that and a little bit of solvent, and I'll hit it on all surfaces there, and take my little Q-tip here, and then just run it in between those little teeth there. It's kind of like flossing. So you can see it's pulling a little bit of carbon out of there. You want to make sure these don't get too dirty and inhibit the function of the AR15 you're putting it in. We'll go through there just like that. Again, depending on the degree of carbon buildup you get here, you might want to hit it with some sort of brush, but this bolt carrier group's been taken care of pretty well, lubed right, and didn't get a bunch of hard carbon buildup there, so good to go there. Next, we're going to move over to the carrier itself. So the carrier, the outside, just give it a good wipe down. You shouldn't have any too crazy hard carbon buildup here, but it can happen. Again, just use some solvent and a brush that isn't too abrasive on there. Give it a nice wipe down. Okay, and then we're gonna move to the inside of the carrier once we get that nice and clean. So the inside of the carrier is gonna be right in there where the bolt rides, that bolt channel in there. I like to hit it with a little bit of solvent. And then take a Q-tip again. Q-tips are super helpful for this, and just kind of wipe those inner walls down. So you can see I'm pulling all sorts of yucky out of there. This area usually wipes out pretty easily depending on the finish of the bolt carrier group you have. Our phosphate bolt carrier groups are chrome lined, so that does make this a lot easier, but our nitride and nickel boron bolt carrier groups also clean out super easy, so generally this won't give you too much trouble. Again, just like the bolt tail though, you will notice like on this particular one, there's a little bit, but you'll get some carbon fouling at the very back in there. That's not super critical. You don't need to get that totally perfectly squeaky clean. Just make sure there's not anything in there that's gonna prohibit proper function. So we got that nice and wiped out. You can check the back here too if you have some carbon fouling that you want to get out of there just to keep it clean. you can go ahead and hit in there, get that all wiped out, but not super important. Okay, next we're gonna move to the lubing and the reassembly of the bolt carrier group. So I usually start with the bolt here. I'm gonna get a little bit on the teeth of the bolt carrier group there, just make sure that's nice and lubricated because that is a friction surface. Don't wanna go too crazy though. Just like that, just make sure you don't get any on the bolt face here. You don't need any lube on there, and that could end up hurting you in the long run. And then we're gonna move back here. You can see where there's a little bit of a wear spot there. That's a friction point. Go ahead and wipe that down, just like that, and you're pretty much good there. Then we just take that and reinsert it into the carrier. You're gonna wanna make sure that your ejector is facing to the right of the carrier, same side as the Ford assist serrations, I apologize. And you're gonna wanna make sure the hole in the bolt gets lined up with the hole for the cam pin there. Take your cam pin, drop it in just like we took it out. So running the length of the carrier. Then you're gonna rotate it 90 degrees. So it should look just like that. Then you take your firing pin, drop it right on in, just like that. And then last but not least, take the little cotter pin, slide it in, make sure it's flush. Don't forget that, it's a small step and easy to forget, but if you forget it, your firearm you're putting it in won't work, so it's important. I give it a little function check, push back and forth, make sure it's good. You can check and make sure you have firing pin protrusion, push on the back of the firing pin. That's no sort of gauge, but it lets you know everything's put together right and the firing pin is protruding out of the bolt when it needs to be. So, lastly, you're gonna lube the carrier itself. So there's 4 rails on the corners of the bolt carrier group. That's where it rides in the upper receiver. You're gonna get that lubed, just like that. And then you're gonna need to get the cam pin and cam pin channel right there. It is a friction surface. And then I like to get a little bit on the bottom of the bolt carrier group. You can see a little wear there. There's some friction that occurs there. So just keep those parts running good and happy for a long time. And then lastly, before you put this back in your AR15, you're gonna take the bolt and pull it forward, just like that, and then it'll slide freely into the upper receiver. If you do have it back like that cam pin will keep it from freely sliding into the upper receiver. That's something we get a lot of new shooters and a lot of new builders have issues with. If you don't know that, you'll be sitting there for 15 minutes trying to get your bolt carrier group into your upper when all you need to do is give it a little pull. For more information or to purchase a bolt carrier group, please visit us at aeroprecisionusa.com.